Welcome to the Sherry Welsh Coaching Podcast. This is Phil Johnson, and joining me today is leadership coach and author Sherry Welsh of sherrywelsh.com. Sherry coaches individuals privately and works with groups within companies too. And you can get her book, which is titled Slowing Down: Unexpected Ways to Thrive as a Female Leader, from any of the major book retailers. Sherry, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Phil. Great to be here.
Now, Sherry, in the past couple of episodes on the Honest No and talking about interviews as conversations about opportunities and not an interrogation, we've been covering a broad topic of loving what you do versus simply tolerating it. And another broad area, I'd call it a buzzword that comes up related to loving what you do versus tolerating it, is the phrase work-life balance. I hear people talk about this by saying this or that company is a good place to work because the work-life balance is good, or maybe mentioning wanting to or not wanting to get into a particular industry because of the perceived work-life balance in that field. And I just wonder, if you were coaching me and I was making those comments on work-life balance, where would you go with that? What would you say to me?
Yeah, it's definitely a big theme that comes up constantly with clients. So if I were coaching you, I'd really take a minute to understand what you mean by work-life balance. So if I ask you, what do you mean by that? What does work-life balance mean to you?
Yeah, so I might say, when I started out at my job, I was excited about it, and I was happy with what I was doing and enjoying it. But lately, I feel like I've been spending too much time at work, and I'm missing out on my family life.
Okay, and so now we're going to get into if we were going to continue coaching, we get into, okay, so what has you staying so late at work and giving so much of your time and attention to work lately?
Yeah.
So at some point you're going to get into, well, I have this special project, and my colleague asked me to take care of something because I did it before and it was easy for me to just do it again. So now we're covering our Honest No discussion that we had on one of our podcasts, where we overcommit ourselves and we now say yes to too many things, so that we're feeling level 1 victim energy kicking in, like there's nothing I can do, I have to stay late, I have to finish this project, I promised it would be due tomorrow. So you're wanting to be in integrity with your word. So it's definitely something that's good to notice, that you're wanting to honor your word. However, as it starts to then impact your decision to want to be at home at a certain time, whether it's to be home for dinner, whether it's to be home to spend quality time with your kids before they go to bed, whether it's to spend quality time with your spouse or partner, or whether it's to, socialize with friends. Something has gotten in the way of you saying yes to your personal life in that moment, and choosing to say yes to stay at work longer. So whether you're a seasoned worker or just coming into the workforce, the whole concept of work-life balance is simply a concept. So it means different things to different people. And what I do when I work with clients that come in with this topic as a problem, it's in the way, I'm really not enjoying my job anymore because I never, I have to work so many hours, and that was never what I planned. When I started this job, I thought it was going to be a lot better. I thought I'd be able to spend more time with my family. There's all sorts of a litany of complaints that come in.
Yeah.
And so when I coach clients that bring in all these reasons why they're starting to not enjoy their work so much, and they're just, feeling like they have to tolerate it because they don't have a choice, and they're just going to have this bad work-life balance situation for a while or forever, usually is what people think, and I find myself constantly saying, nothing is forever. Okay, it doesn't work for you right now. And so let's talk about what are the logistics that are in place. What's the system that you have operating right now? Right now, you're choosing to say yes to stay at work versus yes to go home. And let's get honest about that.
Yeah.
And let's look at what do you really want to do for today in this current situation that you're a part of. And not have to have it all figured out forever. Simply right now. What works for you right now and what doesn't work for you right now? And let's look at those.
Right. So when I started out at work and life were balanced, but then things changed, maybe at work, maybe I changed, and now they're not in balance. But what I'm hearing from you is that work-life balance is not something that a great company dictates to me or my chosen occupation dictates to me, but it's something that I have control over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the phrase that you just said there, I have control over, means I own it. I'm in ownership of my choices in my life. So I have this one client that I've worked with, and it's a large organization, and I've worked with the leadership team, and they have this big policy of, great work-life balance and, family first, and anytime you need to take time off for a family situation, no problem. And it's almost to the other side of the pendulum. It's almost to the extreme of this, taking this concept of such a thing as work-life balance to make it a big deal. And it's really not a big deal. It's, again, coming back to the center to say, okay, I have a situation that occurs that happens to involve a family member, whether it's my son or my parents or a sibling, and I want to take care of that right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's the priority right now, period.
Sure.
I don't have to explain it to anybody. I don't have to rationalize it. I just simply take care of it, make the logistics happen. And it doesn't mean I abandon my responsibilities at work, because I'm a professional. I want to make sure that my colleague is willing to step in and pick up the project that I'm currently working on for just a period of time until I deal with getting a system in place to handle the family situation, whatever that might be. So, for example, it could be, I have my case where my parents are aging. So we have situations where my father may get sick and go in the hospital, which happened recently. My mother may need some, memory care support. So we need to get some people in place to help us. So right now, my attention is needed to find the right person. Once I find the right person, I'm not needed to continue to focus on that full time. So I can come back and give my work and other parts of my life my full attention. So that's the idea. It's a dance, and it's a constant ebb and flow of where I'm choosing to put my attention. So the whole, again, concept of work-life balance doesn't exist. It's in this moment, where do I want to put my attention? And where do I want to focus my energy? So that it's productive energy and inspiring energy and uplifting and enjoyable. Level 6 versus, I got to take care of this and I have to, work late so that I can make sure I get this taken care of before I can get home. And then I'm just, I only have a little bit of time at home. Now I'm fighting with my choices, which is level 2.
Yeah.
So it's a choice of how do I want to engage in life? I want to take moment to moment. Where do I want to give my time and attention right now that's most enjoyable, most productive, most effective, given what I want to create, given that I want to love the work I do, and I want to have really great personal relationships. So that's the idea, is I want to enjoy the time with my family. I don't want to resent them. I don't want to make it look like it's a burden or feel like it's a burden. I want to love that time.
Yeah.
that I get to help my parents in this phase of their life. And I want to love that I can continue to work as well.
Yeah.
So that's really what it, to me, comes down to, that, there's no either or. There's, you hear that a lot too with the whole concept of work-life balance. Well, it's work and life. Yeah, I agree. And it's moment to moment work and moment to moment life, or personal life in this case.
So the ebb and the flow, the dance of work-life balance might be related to a crisis or a particular situation. I guess it could also be broader, like making a decision to start or stop working altogether, or change careers, or full-time to part-time, all kinds of broader decisions. But it seems the overarching thing of it is not, are your work and life balanced, but are you taking ownership of your decisions about how you want to spend your time, how you want to live your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And, what comes to mind as you were saying that is the decisions that you can line up so you can create a schedule that works for you. So, for example, when my son was doing some community theater, work and roles, and, it's clear, I know when the show is. It's scheduled. It's scheduled out 3 weeks from now or a month from now. So I can plan it on my calendar that particular day, I'm going to make sure I'm leaving the office by 5 o'clock because I want to ensure that I'm not delayed getting to my child's show.
Yeah.
So it could be that this crisis occurs that day at work. Well, okay, define crisis. And there's enough people on deck to say, hey, I made a commitment to be at my son's show and I'm going to be there. So given this quote unquote crisis came up today, I'm going to now slow it down, consider who can I get to help me here. So you want to ask those open-ended, empowering questions to yourself. Who can I get to help me here?
Mm-hmm.
Who can I have cover this part of the project for me so that I can go and enjoy the show? So that you're really not going to the show with your mind now still back at the office, wondering how it's going, nervous that it's, going to blow up and it's going to be your fault and if you were there, you would be able to take care of it. But now you're here at your son's, and in my case, my son's show. So there, I, really learned myself to, when I say I'm going to be somewhere, I make it happen. And when I choose to change plans because I said I was going to be there, now it no longer fits for me, I'll let the person know in advance. Hey, you know what? Is it possible? I know it's a little bit short notice. Is it possible that we change our meeting today or our plan? And 99% of the time, the person says, absolutely, no problem. Actually, it works better for me too,
mm-hmm.
if we shift. So it's, again, asking for what you want in that moment to say, I want to commit to honoring what I said I was going to do that's important to me and it's going to be fun for me. So in the meantime, I'm going to ask that we move this or change this or whatever it is that's happening, that we get in the way of you doing that. So the whole in control and ownership is exactly what you said, Phil. That's what it comes down to. I get to own my choices and own my asking for what I want, own my language, own my requests.
Right. So, I'm hearing in what you're saying, I'm hearing the elements of the trust model. I'm hearing the honest no. I'm hearing asking for what you want. I'm hearing keeping in integrity to do what you say you're going to do. The honest no being part of being transparent. The overarching question is not, are my work and my life balanced? It's, am I taking ownership of the choices I'm making for my personal life and my professional life? But the practice, the application, the outworking of that is in using the elements of the trust model that we talked about.
Exactly.
By asking for what you want, by being transparent and saying an honest no when you are already committed elsewhere, so that you can stay in integrity. And it's taking that level 5 partnering approach to the energy you're bringing to all these interactions. The outworking is in a lot of the things that we've talked about on these podcasts.
You got it. Yep, you got it, Phil. That's exactly what it is. And it's really loving those choices. It's loving that you have that freedom to make those choices moment to moment. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean that, just because you didn't work late today and you chose to leave and enjoy the evening, whatever, events and activities you had planned for this evening. And it could be nothing, right? It could be reading a book. It could be taking a walk. It could be anything like that. It doesn't have to be related to kids or spouse or anything. And it's honoring that choice you're making. So with that, it's always then maybe the next day it can be a flip-flopped, where you actually choose to work late because you're excited about the project you're working on, and you're in flow, you're in level 7, and time is standing still, and you're really having an amazing experience working on this project. You're learning something new, you're getting to be creative, you're meeting new people as you engage in it fully. So so there's no reason to go home at this point until you do, right? until it makes sense to. To take care of yourself. But otherwise, there's no right or wrong formula that you should always, only work 9 hours a day, and you should always give your family, 4 hours a night. It's not a formula. It's a moment-to-moment choice in what works best for you in this moment. Really being honest with yourself so that you can be fully engaged, fully show up, loving what you're doing, whether it's in the office or at home. Yeah.
And when you're making your choices that way, like you said, the energy you bring to your work or your home life is going to be completely different, because you're not resenting either one.
Exactly.
You're there because you want to be there, and you're engaged in it, and it's meaningful to you.
You got it. And that's what it's all about. I mean, life is too short to not enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be so hard. It's simply, okay, what makes sense for me to do right now? And it's going to be a personal choice every time, a personal ownership choice.
Yeah. And I was thinking also, this is not something that's going to be the same for every person.
Exactly.
One person may work 80 hours a week and love it because their job is their life. They're totally invested in their profession or their field, and it just occupies them totally. So to them, that's ideal. But for somebody else, working those 80 hours would kill them. Mm-hmm. And it's gonna vary. It's gonna differ from person to person.
It is. And like you said, if you're bringing in the energy in that 80-hour week of resentment and frustration and fighting the concept of I have no work-life balance, then you're going to get sick, and it's going to burn you out, and it's going to be destructive because it's all catabolic.
Yeah.
If you're working that 80 hours and you're loving every minute of it, and you're getting to be creative, and you're inspired by the work you're doing, you're learning, you're invigorated by it, then you're going to be flying high, and there's no stopping you.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't even feel like work. And it's an enjoyable way of spending those 80 hours in that particular week. And that's always available and possible to everyone, really. And I'm not encouraging 80-hour work weeks by any means, because I think that, that can be excessive. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means, okay, for this week, that works.
Yeah.
And it actually worked really well. And I'm really excited with what occurred. And then as next week comes up, you get to choose. Do I want to, do a different model this week or do something similar? And there's no right or wrong answer to that.
I think today we you sort of blew up the concept of work-life balance, which I think is kind of fun to blow up a concept now and then.
Exactly.
If I'm asking you how to balance my professional life and my home life, if I'm asking that question about work-life balance, I'm really not asking the right question. And I ought to listen to this podcast and find out some better questions to ask. So thank you, Sherry, for the conversation today.
Thank you, Phil. It was great.
And thank you also for listening to today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Sherry Welsh Coaching Podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and other podcast directories. For Sherry Welsh today, this is Phil Johnson. Thanks again for listening.